Yes.
Hi, my name is Tendor.
And I'm Ladin, and this is Our Nation, news and analysis on the state of Tibet. We're here in front of the White House in Washington, D.C., and we have just had a really productive and I think incredibly inspiring day here in the nation's capital. We came down here for two reasons. One, to send messages to President Obama that we need him, Tibetans need him to lead strong, coordinated, multilateral action for Tibet at this time. The crisis in Tibet demands a new approach, and we believe multilateral action is the key to that new approach. So we're here in Washington, D.C. for an urgent emergency lobby day, but it's actually very good news for a change. We have a sign-on letter to the President of the United States of America from Representatives Wolf and McGovern. And basically the letter is calling for urgent action on the Tibetan issue, especially in response to the crisis of self-immolations and extreme repression in Tibet right now. So we're going to go meet with our representatives and people to members of Congress to let them know that the sign-on letter was released yesterday. We have 1 week to get as many representatives signed on as possible, and we're here to urge as many members of Congress to sign on to this letter as we possibly can, because this is so important. It's such a critical time, and what we're very, very thrilled to see about the sign-on letter from Congressman Wolf and McGovern is that it includes in the opening, one of the top asks is that the U.S. and President Obama take a leading role in a multilateral initiative in getting other countries to support the Commissioner for Human Rights at the UN, Navi Pillay. She made a statement recently, and they're basically saying, we believe Commissioner Pillay's statement requires stronger effort on the part of the U.S. and the international community to press China to respect human rights in Tibet, and they want the U.S. to collaborate with other governments, and this is the key. The key for us is a multilateral initiative. We need a new approach. We need the U.S. working with other countries together to push for change in Tibet. And this letter is the beginning, I think, of that effort.
And because our goal today is to go to as many offices as possible, we don't have to. Our ask right now is very simple. This letter is very important, and we need the members of Congress to sign it. So we don't need to spend a lot of time explaining the whole situation. Most Congress people know the situation inside Tibet. Of course, if they ask you or they want to speak more on the issue, that's great. But right now, the most important thing is that they know that this letter, they can sign on. It has to be signed on to before next Wednesday.
아니 그 라스트 게이트 봐 게이트 게이트 넘도 다시 분조 라 알하모트링 아니 야tar 라
This is just, so urgent in terms of a desperate situation that nobody is representing the Tibetans inside Tibet. There's nowhere to turn. So we are requesting our representatives to sign on to this.
Okay.
Is that something?
Congressman Forbes is right there, and then actually.
Who's
So
the
the-
representative of the board?
Yeah. So
The legislative person.
this is a reading.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then also, if you ever have any questions for Chris, who's our staff assistant, he's the person for it.
Okay.
There's all the buttons on the wheel, okay?
Tibet for Tibetans! Tibet for Tibetans! China, China! Hold, hold, hold! When, President Obama! Stand up for Tibet! Tibet needs you now! Tibet needs you now! Tibet needs you now! Tibet needs you now! 95 self-immolations in Tibet! Freedom now! Freedom now!
President Obama is actually in the White House right now, and he is having a Christmas party in the White House right now. So if people can be louder, he can be sure that he can hear us tonight. So let's give this all we have, and let's make sure that President Obama remembers his Christmas spirit. You know, everyone talks about the Christmas spirit, and we know that President Obama also has some kind of Christmas spirit going on these days. We can say, transform your Christmas spirit into something positive for the Tibet people.
President Obama, my name is Carol McGranahan. I'm a professor of anthropology and a Tibet specialist at the University of Colorado. I'm also an American citizen, and as one of your constituents, I'm asking you to help in the case of Tibet.
For 60 years, Tibet has been under the oppressive and violent occupation of the Chinese government. This systematic annihilation of the Tibetan people and their culture is genocide.
I'm here today to inform you, Mr. President, about these issues. We know you are a powerful leader, a man of moral values and ethics, a person whose leadership cannot be doubted. This is why we think that you are one person who will be able to execute an urgent call for multilateral action on the Tibetan issue. Mr. President, my people are burning themselves to death. Please stand up for Tibet. Thank you.
Now, Mr. President, I truly believe that you are the change the world needs. You are the change Tibet needs. I sincerely urge you to reconsider your diplomacy on Tibet. Use your overpowering message of hope and change to the Tibet situation. Mr. President, please speak out on behalf of Tibet. Please stand on the right side of history. Please stand on the right side of history, Mr. President.
And then the other piece of being down here today, Representatives Frank Wolf and James McGovern have authored a letter to President Obama. It's a sign-on letter. They released it yesterday, and they are looking to get as many members of Congress signed on to this letter. It's very strong, it's very powerful, and it calls for multilateral action. It calls on members of Congress, or on the President, to lead with other nations to get behind Navi Pillay, the UN Commissioner for Human Rights, who put out a very strong statement recently calling on the Chinese to give access to her and to other, to all the relevant bodies to get into Tibet to stop the crisis there.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that this was actually one of the most inspiring and encouraging days for me personally in a very long time. It's been really busy all of these last few weeks, but at the same time I think today was particularly unique and special because the letter from Congressman Wolf and Mcgovern really is a landmark kind of moment for us because the language and the demand of that letter is so strong, and if a lot of congressional representatives get behind this letter, it'll really be noted, take notice of in the White House. And we were splitting up in different groups to hit up all of the offices of the congressional representatives, and I was in a group that visited 25 plus different offices, and it was, we were able to meet many of the legislative assistants, and when we were leaving those letters for the representatives to sign on, the response from them was really incredible because they know about what's happening in Tibet. They know about the situation, and it was such a positive response that made us feel really encouraged at this moment.
Yeah, there was overwhelming concern for what's going on inside Tibet, and I think for all the Tibetans and the Tibetan supporters who participated today from California, from Minneapolis, or Minnesota, Massachusetts, Connecticut, from New York, New Jersey, from across the country, the people who participated in this effort today, this urgent lobbying effort today, I think the mission was clear. It still is clear. We have 1 week. We're calling on all Tibetan Americans and our American supporters to please reach out to your member of Congress and get them to sign on to this letter. The more members that sign on to this letter to the President, the stronger the statement that goes to the President that we need a new approach, and that coordinated multilateral action for Tibet is the key at this moment to helping resolve the Tibet crisis now and in the future.
President Obama! Wake up, President Obama! Obama, support Tibet! Obama, support Tibet! Right now! Right now! Right now! Right now! China lies, Tibet is dead! China lies, Tibet is dead! Shame on Chinese government! Shame on Chinese government! Shame on Chinese government! Shame on Chinese government! 95 self-immolations in Tibet! Freedom now! Freedom now! China out of Tibet now! China out of Tibet now! President Obama! Stand up for Tibet! President Obama! Stand up for Tibet! President Obama! Stand up for Tibet!
The unprecedented wave of immolations is increasing international attention on Tibet. These activists are hoping it will lead the Obama administration to increase pressure on the Chinese government. Jerome Sokolovsky, VOA News, Washington.
It is unacceptable when divisions are made. It is unacceptable that the most powerful seat in the world creates divisions. When Muhammad Bouazizi died, you came in front of the national television, spoke about him for 15 minutes. When there were protests on the streets of Egypt, you came out, spoke about it. You said this was an abuse on freedom, an abuse on human rights. You said Muhammad Bouazizi was desperate. He killed himself for creating a lesson to world leaders. You created a division, Mr. President. It is unacceptable that over 95 Tibetans have self-immolated and you haven't said a word. That is division. Clearly shows that lives that the Tibetans have been given up are falling on deaf ears.
Today was a very productive day. At the last minute, we received news that Representatives Wolf and Mcgovern had a sign-on letter directed at the President asking him to lead stronger, coordinated action for Tibet, acknowledging the self-immolations in Tibet and the crisis, and saying that more needs to be done. And their sign-on letter has a 1-week deadline, 7 days from now until next Wednesday. We need to get as many members of Congress to sign on to that letter as possible. So many of us here, basically all of us here today, we're at the Capitol, we're speaking with members of Congress, with their legislative assistants, we're leaving them the letters, we're drawing attention to this important initiative. And I think that's, if I could say, I can say my message to President Obama here live, and my message would be this. My message is this. At this moment of incredible crisis inside Tibet, where nearly 100 human beings have given up their lives, have given up their own lives rather than attacking the Chinese government, the Chinese military, the Chinese police, rather than lashing out at Chinese citizens or Chinese settlers. Tibetans have turned the protest inward and sacrificed their own lives and given their own suffering and their family suffering in order to draw attention to the Tibetan issue. But more than just to draw attention, Tibetans are doing this because this is our truth. No matter what the Chinese government says, no matter what the Chinese government does, no matter how China rewrites history, or how the Chinese leadership can go around the world calling Tibet China's Tibet, none of that will ever change the fundamental truth that Tibet is not a part of China, Tibetans are not Chinese, and nobody controls the Tibetan spirit. Nobody controls the Tibetan people but Tibetans. And the Tibetan heart and allegiance does not go to the Chinese Communist Party, it goes to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. They have been clear and unequivocal, and they have given up their lives for this truth. Now the question is Tibet just our problem? Is what's happening inside Tibet, is it just the Tibetans' problem to deal with alone? I think any person of conscience knows the answer is no. It's not up to the Tibetans alone to solve this issue. Those people with leverage, those people with ties to the Chinese, those people with power, they have a responsibility to step in and to help. And that's why we're here. Because we all know that President Barack Obama, leader of, the United States of America, but leader of the free world, that nobody has more potential or more ability to help us than this man, this person Tendor described as a visionary, living in this house right here. And ultimately, I think what 95 Tibetan lives given up just in this just over a year, what this crisis, what this sacrifice demands is something new. We need a new approach, because what the world has been doing, what international leaders have been doing for Tibet, it's not working. We can all see that. The Chinese government is not responding because they think that as long as they just have to talk to this government here by themselves and this government over here by themselves, and as long as they can just keep up these single conversations, then they can stall and they can waste everybody's time. And fundamentally, world leaders they're not really serious on Tibet. So now that all these lives have been given, and we are in this incredible crisis, it's time to do something new, to take a new approach, and that means not one leader raising the Tibetan issue, not one leader making a statement here or a statement there, but multiple leaders, multiple countries get together. It's not that hard. Get together and speak with one voice. That will get the Chinese leadership's attention. That will get Beijing to stand up and take notice. The Chinese leadership in Beijing, the government, the Communist Party, whoever they are, they do not want to see some kind of collective action on the Tibetan issue. They do not want to see an international conference convened on the Tibetan crisis. They do not want to see any kind of formal action taken by multiple countries at the same time. But that's exactly what should be done. And if they see this kind of thing happening, if they know that this is possible, they will mitigate their behavior. They will do something different. Some people like to compare us and say, well, look at what's happening in Syria. Even with all of the world in agreement that the Syrian government should stop the murder of their own people, the whole world is not able to get the Syrians to stop. But actually, we can't compare these two directly. The Chinese government is engaged in the world in a way that the Syrians are not now. The Chinese government is supposedly a friend of this administration, and supposedly a friend and the most important trading partner of the Canadians, the Europeans, all these free nations. So if they're really that engaged, if they're really truly friends, and if they're supposed to be a leading nation, unlike the Syrians, if they're supposed to be a leading and respectable nation in this world today, then they can learn to play by the rules. And it's up to the international community, it's up to the president and the leader of the free world to help them do this. This is your responsibility, President Obama, and all we're asking you to do is fulfill that. And actually, we know in real terms, such an action, multilateral action, collective government action at this time for Tibet, as Representative Wolf and Representative McGovern have pointed out in their letter, this could help the Tibetan people. And God knows we need your help right now.